Alright, good evening and welcome back everybody for our next stream. We are back in Explain 11 because with the latest software update of Microsoft Flight Simulator, I got a lot of crashes to desktop, so now I'm waiting for the next update. And in the meantime, we'll have a look at how flying a business jet in Explain 11 is, because my last stream in Microsoft Flight Simulator was also with a business jet, so I was curious how the experience compares in Explain. This is a new plane in my collection, but it has already been released, I think, in March from the developer Aerobask. Uh, we will have a short review of how the plane is, how it goes. I've already flown 2 flights on the network yesterday and the day before, I think. So I have a bit of a practice, but we'll see as we go along how things are. I think the external model is very nicely done. We are now in Charleroi, Echo Bravo Charlie India, and then this is the scenery that I've made for Charleroi, and we will be flying to Liverpool, and we will be flying to Liverpool because I like Liverpool, and tomorrow Liverpool plays at Anfield, so it's a perfect opportunity to take a business jet and watch and prepare for the game. uh, First of all, we want to get in the airplane. We can just open the doors, it's very nice, and we will also maybe connect the GPU while we are at it. You can actually also open other baggage compartments here and also at the back. And to open and to connect the GPU, you can also just connect to the GPU opening and then connect to the GPU itself. You can even hear how the GPU is running. I think it's very nice. And then from here, we can actually get into the airplane. I've set up an animation which will do it for us. And then you can see how we walk into the airplane itself. For this animation, I'm using X camera. This is a nice camera system, an add-on that I've always been using to explain. And then we are in the cockpit. It's quite a nice cockpit. You can look around. There is a set of Garmin 1000 panels. There is a yoke. You can remove the yoke and show the yoke. We'll make a full setup of the cabin. You can either clicking here at the AviTab or the holder of the AviTab install a tablet. This has the settings of the plane itself and also an AviTab interface. We'll be using this quite a lot. But otherwise it's quite a simple, well, let's say relatively simple cockpit. If you have flown a TBM 900 or the CJ4 in Microsoft Flight Simulator, then you will be familiar with this kind of airplane. You can look also back at the cabin. It's quite a nice cabin. While
Unable to find view ID 12.
Yes, I didn't set up. But while we are flying, we will have a bigger look around and have a look at the features. So now that the external power is already connected, the GPU is connected, we'll go through the checklist. So there is a cockpit preparation safety inspection. The emergency door locking pin is removed. You assume it's not really modeled here, but let's say it's removed. And hi Seaman, I think I've seen you already. We'll have a look from the tower. And yes, there is Seaman, the Ryanair, at the main terminal. He's joining us today during the flight. And then we'll continue with the safety inspection and cockpit preparation. Document manuals and charts are on board. The maintenance status are checked. Of course, this is not modeled here, but in a real plane, you would have a look at the documentation for the airplane and so on. So all the emergency equipment is on board. And here we go do a flow from bottom left up. So the oxygen has to be pushed in, set to the middle passenger auto position. The battery is in the off position. On the electrical panel, and the battery switches are in the off position indeed. The generator switches in the auto position, so they need to go up. Then on the pneumatic panel, all the bleeds go into auto and the cross bleed also to auto. A test can stay on the test. All the circuit breakers are in the in position, but these are not modeled. So unlike in the TBM, for example, these are not modeled. It's quite rare that these are modeled, and honestly, in a personal simulator where you are not doing a professional, let's say, training of the aircraft, they are not so important. So I'm not that concerned about that. Let's see, and the test panel was off, circuit breakers checked, fuel pump switches need to go to auto. They are on auto, so that's good. The exit is on the off position. Hydraulic pumps need to be open. The ELT is armed. The pusher control is pushed out. There is no gust lock pin, so that would be a control lock. It's not modeled, but it's removed. The rudder pedals are checked. Heating panel, windshield off. The ADS probes are auto, that's correct. Ice protection are off. That's good. Landing gear is down. Pressurization panel. The mode switch should be in the auto position. It's in the auto position. The ECS club is in the boat. Put that on boat. Everything else is okay. The temperatures are not really modeled, but the mode in air conditioning is set to auto, so that's fine. The flaps are set to 0, and the throttle is at idle, and the speed brakes are closed. Parking brake is set. And the seat belts, let's say I'm already belted in and secure. So the internal inspection and cockpit preparation is complete. Now normally there would be an external inspection. We will simply simulate that by removing all the static elements. You can just click on the chocks and that removes the static elements. That means that there is nothing else on the plane that shouldn't be. All the pitos are free, the chocks are removed, the engine covers are removed. So that's all good. Let's go back to the cockpit and continue. So let's say external inspection is complete. Of course, this would take much longer time in real life. And let's power up the aircraft. Is there a checklist also for this step? I don't think so, but let's say there is a before start checklist, so we are not yet at that point. That's not necessary yet. And maybe before we power up the airplane, we can also fuel it. So it's a very nice feature in this Aerobask that you can come and actually open the fuel compartment, and then you can do the fueling yourself. You can also do it in the Avitub, but you can do the fueling yourself here too. And then we'll check how much fuel we actually need. So here is my sim briefing. I already set our weights according to what's set here. So we have 4 people on board. Our zero fuel weight is 5.8 tons. And we need a total of 1,260 kilograms of fuel. So then put this battery selection on. Then it will tell you how much fuel is on board. You can actually also check the different fuel tanks, left, right tanks, and total. And then you can select how much fuel you want. So we want 1,260, and you have to hold this. So it takes a bit of time, but it speeds up, so it's not too bad. So we want 1,260 kilograms of fuel. Our alternative Birmingham, and I've also adjusted a bit the sim brief profile because during my previous flight I experienced that the consumption of the plane is a bit higher than what the default profile says. 1,260. So I've adjusted that to the sim. 1,260. And when this is done, so that's how much we want, then you can open the refueling valve and also open this. And then you can see that there is fuel flow. And actually I think there is no issue with powering the airplane up while there is fueling. Probably there isn't, but we will wait. It goes quite fast. And while it's fueling, we can have another look at all the external modeling. So I find that the modeling is really nicely done. You can see all the details of this pneumatic tube that comes out when the door is opened. Some of the textures are not extremely high resolution, but on the other hand, some textures, for example, this Phenom 300, is a sticker, let's say, in modeling terms, so that's higher resolution. But if you don't zoom into crazy, let's say, close by, then it's quite okay. I think the modeling is nicely done. I don't like when the modeling is so detailed that it deteriorates the frame rate, but it's really well done. So also the engine detail is nice, the sounds are nice, the shiny surfaces are really nicely done. The wheels are nicely done, the pitos are well modeled, the gear section is nice, and I've also modified one of the liveries to match my personal favorite call sign. So we can go back in the meantime to the fuel and see how the fueling is going. And it's done, so then you see that all the valves are closed. You can put this back, you can close the refueling valve, and you can also put this back to normal. And then the fueling process is complete. We can go back to the cockpit and power up the airplane. So battery switches go on. And since the GPU is available, we'll use the GPU so we don't use too much of the batteries. The system powers up. There is an alignment which takes quite some time here. There's a TOS test, which is the terrain awareness warning system, I think. So it's a warning, for example, when you are going towards a terrain. That takes a while. Here you can see that our IRAC cycle is up to date.
TOS system test OK.
TOS system test is passed. We enter here. We confirm that we have enough fuel, 1261 liters, sorry, kilograms, and we went to 1260, so that's good. And there is a TCAS test also passed, very good. Then let's go further. The transponder can go to standby. It's good. And then I like to see also the DME and the bearings to selected nav aids. That's set. We'll have to put a flight plan in. And that's the next thing we'll do. We'll put in a flight plan while everything... Okay, as is also initialized. One more thing we want to do is to set the burrow. And for that we will go to the airport charts, Echo Bravo Charlie India, Calera, and the weather is 1018 and the runway 24 in use, 1018. Of course you would listen to the 80s, but now we are cheating a bit. So 1018, then we set 1018, it's around 600 feet, that's correct. Also on the backup, 1018 around 600, cross check also there, that's correct. Okay, then we want to set up our flight plan. Let's do that. You can also use this nice keyboard area for doing it, and I'm also going to go back and open my briefing for the route. And this is our route. So we will, since there is no ATC, unfortunately, I'm going to use the CJ4 Yankee departure, and I'm just quickly checking if our other person who is flying has maybe questions about the departure. No, so that's fine. So let's program everything into the Garmin. So Echo Bravo Charlie India is already there, so we can basically start by either putting in the route or the departure, since we already know it. Since we already know it, I'm going to start with putting in the departure. It's a C4 Yankee, C4 Yankee, enter, load, and then it puts in the departure. We will depart to the west. And then from Sivr, we take the upper EMB-505 airway And that also works quite easily here in the Garmin 1000. You can just go to the first empty space. You can then hit menu, open airway, sorry, load airway, and then all the available airways on that point are shown. And then we need the upper Yankee 50, and we need it until lumen. Oh, upper Yankee 50, would need it to lumen. That's interesting. Where is lumen? Ah, there you go, lumen. Okay. And then from lumen we go the Lima 610, menu, load airway, Lima 610, Lima 610, and we take that to Lima Alpha Mike. Lima Alpha Mike, that's quite far. And then from Lima Alpha Mike we take the upper November 57, or uniform, but I think these are upper and lower airways, so uniform November 57. Menu, load airway, uniform November 57, and we take that to Wellin. And then from Wellin we take the Tango 420. Tango 420 to Tango November Tango. Alright, and then our destination is Echo Golf Golf Papa, Echo Golf Golf Papa, Liverpool, yes, enter. And then we don't actually know our arrival yet, but since there is no ATC, if there is still no ATC, unfortunately there is no ATC, and I think Siba is already maybe pushing back. So let's have a look outside for a second. See if there is somebody else. No, he's still at the gate. Okay. And let's go back to programming this. So since there is no ATC, we could already put in an SID, a SID, which is Tipod to Gulf. Just to have a full picture, and then of course if that changes in the flight, then we can always change that. So select an arrival, and that's the Tipod to Golf. Tipod to Golf, enter, load. Where did my flight go? TNT, Nanti, Keegan, and then we go up and around. Okay, that is correct. And then the approach we'll do in the air. We don't deal with that now. Okay, the flight plan is then set. That's good. On the map I would like to see the terrain. We can that's fine as it is. So that's set, the fuel is set, the GPU is connected. Okay, then we can do a before start checklist. And that's in my here, before start. So pre-flight and test are completed. There's still the flow first, so the oxygen flow is checked, it's not modeled. On the test panel we need to do 3 tests. So here's the test panel, and you can set which test you want to do and then start. So there's a fire test first. You can see
Fire.
here the fire, also these light up, and you hear that the system tells us there is a fire. Then there is I think a smoke detector. And then you can see the baggage smoke come up, and then the annunciators, which you can see all the 5 things light up. These. So that those tests are good, and then you can also do a stall protection test, which you do by pulling on the yoke, then pressing the button, and you can see that it pushes itself, even though I'm pulling on the yoke. And I see that the seatbelt is starting to push, so that's good. We can have a look outside to see if he's really pushing. Indeed, he's pushing back good. So all the tests are completed. Then we tell the passengers that they should put the seat belts on, and they can actually see that up here. Another nice feature that you can also, when you fill in the flight plan, you can see the departure and destination airports, and during the flight you will see that it also displays where we are in the flight. So the seatbelt signs are on. External lights, we'll put on navigation lights and strobe lights for the start. We put the strobe lights on because there is no separate beacon lights. And there is a beacon light up here. So we put the strobe lights on now to tell the ground crew that we are going to start. And the beacon lights will go on automatically when we start an engine. And also before the start we'll close the door. Alright, the door is closed. And we can also here in the status page see that all doors are closed. So that's nice. External lights are set as required. The emergency exit light goes to the armed position. Don't need so much light up here. The panel lights we need, and we will put some dim effect lights to the cabin, not that it's very visible during the daytime. Fuel quantity and balance is checked, 1261 kilograms, and we needed 1260 kilograms, I think. 1260 kilograms, perfect. So that's checked. Then the oxygen pressure is, I think, was also correct. That's 1800 psi in the green, and that's good. The engine ignition switches go to auto. The parking brake is set, the doors are closed. Then let's do a quick checklist. The pre-flight test is completed, oxygen pushed passenger auto is set, oxygen pressure is correct level, electric panel is all, batteries are more than 27, and also the GPU is connected. The bleed panel is all on auto, the fuel panel pumps are auto, crossfeed is off, pusher is out, hydraulic pumps are open, ice protection is not required, pressurization is checked, and that's on both auto, and the pressure is okay. Engine fire is pushed out and off. Thrust levers are idle, flaps up, and the speed brakes are closed. Parking brake is set, doors are closed, so before start checklist is completed. Then we can do our start procedure. So we start with engine 2. We put first engine ignition is already on auto. We go to run, second start, comes back. You can also here have a look at how the engine spools up. The N1, ITT, N2, and pressure is rising, oil temperature is rising, fuel flow is rising, so we have quite a good start, I think. We can have a look also from outside. This might be loud, I hope not too. And this one. Okay, so it's running nicely. We can come back. The engine is stable, so we can start also engine number 1. N1, ITT, N2, oil pressure rising, fuel flow. And we wait till the engine stabilizes. Okay, the engine is stable. And then now we can disconnect the GPU. So we don't use the GPU anymore, but it still needs to be disconnected. So now we have just disconnected our electrical network, but the GPU still needs to be physically disconnected, and we will do that now. And also close this. So we are good. GPU is disconnected. Now you can also see it's not there anymore. Okay. Now with pressing on the electric emergency button, we can test if the batteries hold. So we can push in the electric and the emergency button, and that is here. So we open, we push it in, and everything, the batteries are still fine. So that's passed, and the battery and the voltage was checked. The electric emergency button is now pushed out. The stall protection system we already tested. AFCS control unit is set. This should go back to test. This is not modeled. Then one more thing we need to do is set the takeoff speeds. The landing field elevation is and the burrow is set. And for the takeoff speeds there is a nice, so you can do that manually here. And there is a detailed performance chart and hi Hank. Nice of you joining. So there is a detailed set of performance charts like in real life where you can set these speeds and calculate from the pressure, altitude and the temperature and so and so. But there is also a nice and handy plugin that you can download which does all these calculations for you. So you can see that our weight is a bit more than 7 tons. That's going to be our takeoff weight. We are at almost 600 feet. The outside air temperature is 20 degrees Celsius and we will use flap 1 for takeoff. And then you see that it's only a bit more than 900 meters of runway necessary for our takeoff run, and there is 1805 meters available from Sierra 4 where we will enter the runway. And then these are the V speeds that we will use, and the N1 for takeoff is going to be 88.8%. That's going to be automatically set when we set takeoff go around mode. But if you just click on use speeds, then these speeds populate the menu, and then they will be also visible here as we speed up. So that's setting in the speeds. We can go back to our checklist for later and continue the flow. So takeoff speeds are set, the transponder is set to standby, altimeters are set and cross-checked. Indeed, set and cross-checked. The flight controls, let's see if the flight controls are full and free, and the rudder too. Okay, flight controls are full and free. The trim is set in the green. Good. Flap set for takeoff, that's flap 1. And here it will also say flap 1 when it's set, flap 1 is set. External lights as required. Now we can stop the strobe lights because if you look outside, the beacon is already running, which tells people that the engines are running, and we'll only put on the strobe lights when we enter the runway. So external lights as set as required. So then let's do an after start checklist. The GPU is disconnected, the electric emergency was tested, the voltages were correct, and now it's pushed out. Stealth protection was tested, takeoff data is set, trims are set, rudder and yaw pitch is, rudder and roll trim is at 0, flight control speed brakes were checked, ice protection is not required, flaps are set for takeoff after start, checklist is complete. Okay, why am I always closing this? And now we can taxi, because there is nobody online, unfortunately. We will have to just use Auto Unicom. So normally we would have connected ground for clearance and for startup. We don't need pushback because we can run, roll, and then we would request taxi. Before we do that, have another look outside. There is actually SIPA taking off. He's there, taking off. Alright, we'll also come very soon. Let's roll. I'm just going to quickly use Auto Unicom, which you will not see because I've set that you only see the explain window. But since I'm connected to the IVAO network, we will just say quickly that we taxi to runway 24. Let's say taxi to runway and hold short of Sierra 4. So Echo Bravo Charlie in traffic. Oscar Papa Sierra Papa taxiing to holding point 04, runway 24, send, and that's correct. Then parking brake goes off, we put the taxi lights on, bit of power, and when we start rolling power back to idle, check the check the brakes, brakes are available, left and right is clear, and we will be rolling. After takeoff I will lower a bit the volume of the airplane if it's too overpowering. And I think that might be Hank, so you see that there is another airplane there. But I will have to check. Another business jet, very nice. And then when we arrive to the, well, we should have actually already done the before takeoff checks before we are at the holding point, but since there is not so much traffic, we can also do it at the holding point. Okay, parking brakes on, taxi lights off. And then let's do the before takeoff. Takeoff configuration is check. To do that, you can click here on the takeoff config, but when you do that, you should not have the parking brake on.
Takeoff. Okay.
Takeoff is okay, so that's good. Put back the parking brake. There are no messages. We tell the passengers that we are going to take off. Yaw damper is off. We've advised passengers, lights are set as required. Okay, before takeoff checklist, takeoff config, takeoff okay. Message checked, signs, pedestrians, the seatbelt signs were blinked once. Yaw damper is off, ice protection is not required. All the engine parameters are green, passengers were advised, external lights as required, and the transponder goes to alt. So before takeoff checklist is complete. And then what we will do, we'll already assume that they cleared us for takeoff. Then landing lights go on, strobe lights go on, the transponder goes to alt, flaps are set, and then we will, one more thing what we'll do is, we'll set the heading to runway heading. We'll do that on the runway actually. We'll put the flight plan here. And since we are not going to take off from the beginning of the runway, we'll have to do one trick. And that one trick will be is that we actually activate the next waypoint, So click, and we activate the next waypoint already in the route, because otherwise it's not going to automatically pick up runway 24 because we are not taking off from the beginning of runway 24. It's a bit of a confusing thing on the first flight, which I did with the Garmin 1000 system a few days ago, because I have not flown with it for a very long time. So we'll just say direct to that, and then that's the active waypoint. Approach path is okay. Let's line up the runway axis. Okay, on the brakes for a sec. Let's synchronize our heading. Bug. We will fly and set up a flight level change speed initially 180. And then let's say on Unicom that we are taking off. Lining up and takeoff from 824. And okay. Then timer start, takeoff. Then we set. What we have to do is we press here the takeoff go around mode. That will tell us which pitch attitude should we be holding after takeoff. And then we set the throttle to takeoff go around. Toga. We can see takeoff here in green. Power is set to 88.8, that's correct. Takeoff power is set. Airspeed is alive. And our acceleration is very, very fast. Small jet plane, typical. And V1 rotate. Positive great, gear up. We can pitch a bit higher to not go very quickly with the speed. We'll head flying for a bit. Okay, flaps up. And the autopilot can go on. And we can go to nav mode immediately. Nav mode is set, and we also go to flight level change. And what we didn't do is set our altitude. That's gonna be flight level 430, if I remember correctly. And we also pull back the throttle to climb, because Toga is only maximum 5 minutes. And there, in a combination of climb and flight level change, we'll climb with the requested. Well, we'll climb at that speed with the best power setting for the climb. Let's see. The landing gear is up, flaps are up, fuel damper is on, thrust levers are maximum continuous power, pressurization is checked, altimeters are cross-checked. We can also go to standard already. Where is that? PFD, standard barrow, and here also standard barrow. Ice protection is not required. External lights are still okay after takeoff checklist is complete. We would like to see here where we are. There you go. We can close the flight plan also and zoom out a bit. Okay, and now we can also put up our selected speed to 225. That's the typical climb speed. So it's 225 knots. Now of course we pitch down to gain speed, and when we've reached 225 knots, then we'll pitch up to continue the climb. We are nicely following the flight plan, that's good. Have a quick look outside. Might be a bit loud. Sounds are definitely nice. It's temperature outside. Okay, maybe we'll quickly put on a bit of ice protection, because we are around 0 and I can see some clouds around. Okay, we have crossed the flight 100, so the landing lights can go off. All the other lights can stay, that's fine. We don't need to see the timer. There is one thing that's a bit strange. I will talk about that later, but I'm not sure actually. I would like to see the terrain. And that's fine. And declutter. I don't want to see everything because it's way too much. Let me zoom out to have a better overview of what's in front of us. Okay, I plan back. I don't like that when it comes back, then I have to zoom so much. Okay, after takeoff checklist was completed, then there is no checklist until the descent phase, I think. Indeed, so we are good with that. We can go to our maps. Not our maps, sorry, our charts, not charts, providers. No? Yes, airports, sorry. So you can quickly check that we are on the SIP4 Yankee departure, nicely as we should be. But we will already prepare the charts for Liverpool as we are climbing. And you will see that at one point, higher up, we'll switch from displaying true airspeed to Mach number, and then we will switch to holding Mach 0.60 to continue the climb. And hi Jules, he did his solo on the Seneca 200 this morning. Ah, very nice, congratulations. Unfortunately, my flight training tomorrow and next week was cancelled because there are some minor technical issues with the planes. I'm a bit sad about that, but better be safe than sorry, so if there is some minor technical issues, then they should always check it. That's the safest. But of course I was really looking forward to flying in real life. The weather was looking good for tomorrow, so it's a pity that I cannot. But yeah, as they say, that's life. So we are going to prepare the charts for Liverpool. It's Echo Golf Golf Papa. It's Liverpool John Lennon Airport. And the wind is 160 degrees, so we'll use runway 09er. We have first an arrival, which is the Teapot 2 Golf, if I remember correctly. Teapot 2 Golf, yes, 2 Golf, Teapot 2 Golf. That's correct, the Teapot 2 Golf, which means that we are going to be coming from, I'm just going to zoom in a bit. It might actually be easier if I just show it like this. We are going to be coming from TNT and then follow this route to the VOR and then make a turn around. And then from this inbound track we'll join the approach. Of course, if there would be ATC, they would definitely vector us around and not have to do this complex arrival procedure. It's a bit of a pity that currently there is no ATC visible around England, because when I was planning the flight, of course, then both above Belgium and both above England, both above Belgium and England, there was ATC service on the IVAO, and now there is nothing. That's a bit unfortunate, but nothing again that you can do about it. And then our approach is going to be the... So this is not Cat 2 and 3 approved, this plane, only Cat 1, so in any case we'll do the NDB ILS TME runway 09er approach. And you see this is the inbound track, it's the same as this one. So this is the radial 297 and this is 298. It might be that there is a small discrepancy in the charts. But the teapot point is actually 6 nautical miles outwards, and here you start already 7, a bit more than, it's 8.3 nautical miles. So we'll not go till the very end, we'll not go to teapot and we'll not hold there, but we'll immediately, when we are on the inbound track, join the approach. So you want to be there at 4,000 feet, probably, maximum 4,000, and then you fly a DME arc and then down the ILS. That should be straightforward. But I think all those things will only start setting up when we have at least reached our cruising altitude. And there is a lot of headwind cross, so wind is from the front and left. Now if you go back, then you can see that actually our plane has started moving, so it really shows where we are on our track. I think we are also high enough to turn off the seatbelt signs, so then our guests can move around. Seatbelt signs off, the wireless and the onboard the entertainment service is available. And now that we are inside, maybe during the climb we can have a small look around in the cabin. You can see that it's nice, you can actually set all the sunshades separately. You can put up the table here, and then on the table there is even an AVI-tab, so you can basically do all the work from here too, so you don't have to sit in the cockpit if you don't want to. You're asking what the problem with the planes. It's nothing serious. 2 planes, I think one was already having its 50 or 100 hour scheduled maintenance, and I have not really read fully the email, but something small, unexpected things, nothing serious. But it means that they need to fix something and it takes a bit of time, and of course in the meantime we cannot fly. It's unfortunate that the flight school has 4 of these Sonaca 200s, and there are issues currently with 3, but like 1 day ago there was only 1 that was in a normal service, so 1 day ago there was no issues, so it's an unfortunate coincidence that suddenly 3 of the 3 are out, and the 4th one is in Saint-Hubert, so that's not in Charleroi, unfortunately. That's not good for me. And they were saying that they might take for the time being the plane from Saint-Hubert also to Charleroi, and that would help of course the situation a bit, but we'll see. All the lights are controllable. That's also very nice. Of course during the daytime it's not very visible. There is also another table you can put up here, and then there is a coffee. You can have your coffee. And most importantly, or not, you can even come back here to the toilet. And even here in the toilet things are animated. So first of all there is here a spoiler alert for the next plane of Aerobask, which is going to be the Falcon 8X. Until that comes out, this is probably the nicest business jet available. There is a nice view from the toilet, definitely. You can see the wings. You can even open up the toilet, you can flush the toilet. And then it even flushes. I mean, nice, eh? And then of course you need to wash your hands. Then you wash your hands. Top is not animated, but I think it's already good enough. And then of course, if you want privacy, then you can also close the door while you do this, because normally you have 2 passengers on. Okay, let's go back. There is an emergency exit here, which you don't want to open. I think it's not modeled, so you cannot open it, but the emergency exit light is nicely modeled. Let's close this back. And it has this double opening structure. And maybe we can just go back to the seat and look back. You can see there is also a couch here, which has a space for 2 extra people. And also from here you can see our status of the flight. So I think the modeling is quite nicely done. It's with Aerobask always a bit like, I have this feeling that everything is a bit too clean. And of course in a business jet, people clean their business jets, and in real life things are clean. But in general, like I have this feeling in the airplane that is just too clean. I don't know how to explain this. It's like you would expect to have at least a tiny bit more like dirt or something, but it's very nice. I don't want to complain. It's a very nice model plane. So normally what you can see here on the screen of the G1000 is the green circle is the range, and of course the range is more than that because now we are at the climb and we are at the high power, so our fuel flow is very high compared to how it's going to be in the cruise. So when we switch to the cruise, that circle is going to grow. And this other circle is our glide. So you see that the wind is from the front left, that's why this circle is shifted to our rear right. Because the wind is coming from the front, so our glide distance is further again into the downwind, let's say. We are already at flight level 380, we are going to go to flight level 430. You see that we have switched already to holding Mach 60, so our indicated airspeed is actually getting quite low, relatively speaking. The ground speed is still 310, and when we reach our cruise altitude we'll speed up a bit. I'm just gonna have a quick look if there is still no ATC. Unfortunately there is still no ATC. Are we still on the network? Okay, we are still on the network. And then I think maybe if we look in front and down of us, then I think Hank might be taking over. So let's have a look outside. Oh yeah, there he is. There's Hank. There is one small issue I've noticed already during the flight yesterday. There is like a phantom contrail in front. I'm going to like write that in the forums, Aerobask. They usually react very fast. It is a bit strange. And now let's have a look outside too. We have also, of course, a proper contrail, not just a phantom contrail. The sound is nice. Might be a bit loud. I don't know if you can say, guys, if the sounds are too high, too low. Hank, you don't have to slow down if you don't want. You can feel free to go fast. But I will, in any case, still fasten up quite considerably. I'm just still in the climb phase, that's why I'm going a bit slow. But you don't need to slow down for me. There's still quite some time to go, so we will see how we are when we arrive there. But no need to slow down. So that phantom contrail is a bit strange, and like now it's not visible, so I have the feeling that probably the rendering of that contrail is like a bit messed up. They didn't set something, but it's a minor complaint. I mean, I don't want to say anything else. Otherwise, everything is very nicely modeled. I really have to say I'm very picky with all the planes I use in X-Plane. I have only the tallest Airbuses now installed, the J-roll and reality extension pack marked at the SF260. The standard Cessna also with the reality extension pack. Let's see.
Traffic.
Oh yeah, Hank is just in front.
Climb.
Okay, we are going to expedite that.
Increase climb. Increase climb. Increase climb. Increase climb.
Okay, so this is an actual
Monitor
traffic alert.
vertical speed. Monitor vertical speed. Climb, climb. Climb, climb. Monitor vertical speed. Monitor vertical speed. Climb, climb. Climb, climb. Increase climb. Increase climb.
Yep.
Monitor vertical speed.
That's not very safe.
Traffic, traffic.
We will make a small deviation. So we caught up to Hank a bit. And then you can see here that we are creating some separation from Hank. Yeah, that was not very safe. So that's the issue when there is no ATC. Because you don't see these things happen. But we are almost at the cruise altitude. Then we'll probably speed up. And we might overtake Hank. You can already see how the range circle has grown. Okay, we've reached our altitude, we'll level off. And then we'll still leave it in the climb, so that's the maximum continuous thrust, until we go to Mach 0.76. So 0.76 because that's going to be our cruise speed, that's what I want to hold. And then we will switch to the maximum cruise setting. And when you're in the maximum cruise setting, you can also enable the CSC mode, which is basically kind of an auto throttle. It's not an auto throttle, but it will, with a FEDEC, keep the speed that you set. And now I'm going to go back to heading 280, so we are on a parallel track. And then if there is enough separation, then we will go back. So you can see here I'm flying quite parallel with Hank. And Hank is also at flight level 430, which is the issue. Right? Yeah, he's also at flight level 430. Then we might just go back to flight level 410. I think that's the easiest, then we don't have to be on an offset track. The ice is not needed anymore, it's way too cold for ice formation, and we are also out of the humidity, out of the clouds. You can also see very nice synthetic vision display. It's customly programmed by Aerobask. So basically the system, the G1000s are the standard G1000s of Laminar with some custom programming. So the synthetic vision is fully custom programmed. It's very, very nice. And also these displays, these extra displays, you can also make it smaller. All the information is still displayed. You can have the electricity information, the fuel information, fuel available, fuel used, the anti-ice, none of them is used now, and the status page, the oxygen pressure, head relief pressure, and the emergency brake accumulator pressure, batteries, temperatures. It's very nice, it's automatic, it takes your call sign and displays it in the cabin also on the displays. So what we are going to do is we are going to go back to flight 410, and we'll do that in vertical speed mode and just 1000 feet per minute. That's also going to help speeding up. And then we'll do a direct to Rapix, to Sunup. So we can do flight plan Sunup direct enter, and then back nav mode. And then there we'll join back our route 2000 feet under hang. And then we are also coming up to Mach 7.74. We need to stop under the overspeed. So we will already go back to maximum cruise. Then it displays cruise. And when we reach the speed that we want to hold, then I will enable the CSC, which will make sure that we stick to that speed. And that's going to be, I will still manually pull it back a bit. So we are at Mach 7.7. And when we are down at 410, then I will enable that setting. So Hank is still at flight level 430, that's good. It's a bit difficult to see the difference here on the display, I have to say. So it's, well, and it even says -34, and that's not correct. Interesting. It means that some altitude information is incorrectly coming. No, it's even in altitude it says -30. Okay, so we are at now where we want to be at altitude. Goes back to maximum cruise. And when it's 760, then we'll enable CSC. Okay, and the turns it's always dropping a bit because of course. And now CSC is enabled. Then you can see here CSC, and that will make sure that our speed stays constant. Okay. The next thing we need to do is prepare our vertical profile for the descent. Okay, so Hank descended to flight level 380. So normally he should be indeed as displayed at -30. So that's correct. Now we will have a look outside. It's going to be loud again probably. And there is one. Yep, there is Hank. Okay, so we are holding the 0.76 speed, that's good. So what I said is that we are going to prepare our vertical navigation profile for the descent. And how you do that is that you can simply, first of all you need some altitude you want to descend to. Huh? So you can see that here non-T has a limit that it needs to be exactly at 10,000. Now if you press enter, that it will tell that we accept that 10,000. And then you can see that immediately these things are populated with altitudes. Now what we can also do is that we can make the descent steeper, and I know that we can easily do a -3 degrees. Then you say enter, and then you can see the time to top of descent is 14 minutes. So we are 14 minutes away from the top of descent. And we'll also here figure out where we want to be. And to do that we can look at the charts. And actually there is, I think, a planning, an altitude planning. So when we are on the 2 Golf, then you have to be flight level 100 by non-T. And these things are actually like not, let's say, prescribed altitudes. These are things that you can expect. So you see, this is for descent planning purposes, ATC will probably require you to meet these requirements. But in England, in the UK, it's clearly somewhat different from how it is in the rest of Europe. But then we will see where we want to be at the end. So at the end, at T-pod, we don't want to be below 4,000. But we might want to be a bit... no, we don't want to be below 4,000 because we are supposed to arrive here at 4,000. Let's say that T-pod is going to be 4,000. But we can also load in the approach and then see how that works out. So let's say procedures and select approach. And then we are going to go to the ILS 09er. ILS 09er, ILS DME runway 09er. And we will want to do that via the D298H indeed. And then you see that that's exactly what we need to do. So there is the arc and then we come in. The minimums are, there are borough minimums 260, so minimums are on, borough 260, but I think the weather is quite okay in Liverpool, so that's not going to be a problem. And then we can load this. And then we can go back, it's loading of course now, because we can go back to our flight plan, and then we can zoom in here a bit, which is loading again. And then do a bit of a cleanup. So you will see that we basically will have to activate the approach before we are in T-pod. Because if we wouldn't do that, then T-pod is further in than our approach starts. So the approach starts here, but T-pod is already here. But how we will be flying? You can see that we will be coming from outside T-pod on the same radial where the approach starts. So just simply when we are in the turn, we'll activate the approach and then we'll fly the approach. And you can see that this wants you to be at 4,000 feet. So I will already for T-pod say 4,000 feet. And that will help us to be at the correct altitude. And then you say enter. I'm a bit concerned why these things are not populated. Maybe I don't need to do that. We have 10,000. The arrival, do you need to activate approach? No. Okay, I think it should be fine. I just thought also the arrival populates. We'll see. As I said, it's been a while since I flew with the Garmin 1000s. I'm sure you'll figure it out. So you're 10 minutes from the top of descent, and we are basically have prepared everything. What things we can do is just for safety put in a few of these navigational aids. So our ILS is going to be 111.75. And we can tune that in for nav1 basically. And this is also a nice feature in this Aerobask lane that you can actually, you don't have to use the dials. Of course, that's more realistic and I like to use the dials, but you can also just use the mouse and change the frequencies. Of course, not the frequency that's tuned, or maybe also the frequency that's tuned. But this is a nice like feature that makes life easier, let's say. Okay, and then you should also be able to see where the top of descent is. It's a small circle. It's here. So that small circle, I'm going to zoom in a bit. So that circle is where the top of descent is. And then when we are before the top of descent, you can see here that there is the next altitude that's set in the vertical navigation profile. That's 10,000 feet. Then we'll turn down this to 10,000, 10,000 actually, so 10,000 feet. Sorry, flight level 100. If that's still above the transition altitude, but I assume it's above the transition altitude because that's 5,000 feet, so it's flight level 100. And then we'll just hit VNAV, that will arm the VNAV path, and then when we are at the top of descent point, our plane will automatically start the descent. And the only thing we'll have to do is manually make sure that our speed is set correctly, because there is no auto throttle, as I've already mentioned before. Now, if I zoom out, you will see again that the glide circle and the range is enormous. Now that we are barely using fuel, our fuel flow is much lower than it has been before. Our range is much further displayed. It's displayed to be much further. Again, you can see this strange contrail that shouldn't be there. And now if I go outside, it's there. Huh? See? Come in, still there. Weird. Definitely going to report that. But this is really like the only issue I have found during these flights, and this is clearly a non-issue. And it's not Hank, before you ask. Somebody is just taking off under us. 30,000 feet below us, somebody is passing. That's fine. We will want to display this because then we can see the timing of the top of descent is 6 minutes. Zoom out here a bit. This could be a bit better centered, I have to say. Yeah, like this, if you put it small, then it's centered perfectly. Okay. So top of descent is 6 minutes. Let's say what we have to prepare before descent. So there is still no ATC. Approach. No, descent preparation. Windshield heating will go on. Pressurization. Landing field elevation is... Landing field elevation 80 feet, that's correct. We'll set the landing speeds. Again, we'll use our nice plugin for it. Now it automatically switched is to approach. We'll use flaps 2 approach and flaps full landing. And then you see our approach and reference speeds. And the flap safe speed. And then we click use speeds, and then these speeds are automatically put into the system, and they will be displayed on the tape when we are slowing down. So this is a very nice option we have here with this plugin. Okay. There are no icing conditions yet, but we might go through them, so we'll have to keep an eye on that on the descent. But yeah, basically we have prepared. The windshield heating will go on when we start descending. We'll do a checklist also. Our checklist is in here. Descent. So approach briefing. We have already gone through how the approach is going to be, so it's completing. Landing data is set. Let's see the windshield heat. Oops, not the engines, but the windshield heat goes on. The signs and outlet is required. We don't need to put the seatbelt signs on yet. Ice protection is not yet required, so the descent checklist is complete. Then we can go back to our charts. Are there any speed restrictions? Speed restriction is typical 250 at flight level 140 or below. So 250 is a bit higher than typical already. Typically it's below 10,000. Flight level 100. But there is also maximum 210 knots here, but by then we'll definitely want to be below 210 knots, otherwise it's going to be difficult to slow down. But no other restrictions. So it should be fine. In the meantime, if there is any questions from people who are watching, either about Explain or Microsoft Flight Simulator or real life PPL training or this plane itself, feel free to write it in the chat. Always happy to talk about it. And now we have still 3 minutes before any action starts, and of course the initial descent is also going to be a bit without anything to do, so we can always talk about things. How is it in the cabin? I like this feature that you can also here see the AVITAB. I mean, of course it's nothing fancy, but it's quite nice. I also set up, you can look back at the wing, it's a nice view. Then you have a normal left view, front view, view up to the lights, a view down to the throttle, and so it's a nice set that you can still click the toga, see what's set on the display. Then there is a look left, sorry, look right, and then also a look right back above my shoulder. You can also see now that our display shows that we are getting closer and closer to Liverpool John Lennon Airport, and the time is 18:16 UTC, so it's a local time in England, 19:16 and 20:16 Belgian time. I'm happy for the feedback from Henk that everything is loud and clear. I hope the approach is going to be also going like that, well, not loud and clear, but smooth and sailing. You can see that this CSC mode is very nicely keeping our speed at 0.76 Mach, and we are at 2 minutes from top of descent. So we can already dial in, let's say, 10,000 feet, so that's the first step where we will have to be. So we can dial down 10,000 feet. Again, flight level 100. And then you can arm the VNAV. So let's see, the V path is armed, and 1 minute before the top of descent, I think you will start seeing the magenta mark appearing. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we are coming into Velin. Where are we in the chart? There we go. And you see that these altitudes are nicely populated. So that's the top of descent, and that's Henk behind me at 4,000 feet below also. Yeah, now you can see that we are less than 1 minute, so there is the required vertical speed that will be required for the path, and that's basically our path. So as we get closer, that magenta marker will start coming down. It's basically like a glide slope, and we will then capture this vertical path or glide slope. You know, you can see it's moving, and it will then arm the V path. So now V path is armed, and then we will capture. Okay, path is captured. So now we are in V path, and now we have to pull back the power and disable the CSC, otherwise we'll overspeed. So that's something you have to be careful about. On the descent you have to manage the speed. And of course you can manage the speed to basically keep it more or less under the overspeed tape, because we still want to be fast. The only thing what we have to pay attention to is that at flight level 140 we need to be at or below 250 knots. That's our speed limitation point. That's our speed limit. And that's actually only at this point. I don't know what that actually means, this speed limit point on the chart, because it's clearly below flight level 140. I'm pretty sure here it should be already below flight level 140. Or maybe that's, we can actually check key gun. Key gun should be below, because Nanti is at already flight level 100. Okay, so we can go a bit faster. I think a power setting around 50-55% was good for the descent, because we don't want to slow down too much. Okay, so the descent checklist, the windshield is on, and the descent checklist was already completed. Landing speeds are set. And at 10,000 feet will be the next action item. We'll have to turn down the altitude to 4,000 feet, and we'll have to put on the landing lights, and we'll have to turn on the seatbelt signs. And also if we arrive down to an area where there might be icing, then we'll also put on the ice protection. So far everything is looking good. Let's have a flyby view. I think above there is tank behind us. Really loving the sounds. As preparation, we can have a look at the weather. And the QNH is 1014. We'll note that down. 1014. The wind is 170 degrees 5 knots, so that's an almost exact crosswind from the right, but still a runway 09er. And we should have said something also in Unicom about descending and that we are coming for 09er. We'll do that. Arrival on descent. The runway must be selected, runway 09er. Runway 09er, descent passing flight 345. Okay, we sent a message. And one thing we can also have a look at, which I didn't mention, that of course our plugin also tells that normally it also set how much runway we need, but the landing distance is quite short. So we can actually look that up if you want. Are these still the speeds we have put in? Yes. Because normally the speeds change a tiny bit, but of course when you're on the approach then the weight doesn't change much because the fuel flow is very small. You see 50 kilograms per hour per engine, so it's 100 kilograms per hour on the descent. That's minimal fuel flow, basically nothing. So normally the weight will not change enough for the speeds to change during the descent. And that is fine. Let's have a look again outside. Nice wing view. Not much to see. That's the only negative thing about X-Plane is that of course outside is not as pretty as in the Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. But you have to live with that. I've seen already the previews for the next generation of X-Plane coming. And indeed, if the atmospheric simulation will be updated and the weather simulation will be updated, then I don't even care that much if there is not streamed satellite imagery, for example. I can live without that. And the airplanes, I mean the quality of flying is nice for an X-Plane. I have to say I've flown a lot with the CJ4 in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and now I've flown a few flights with this Phenom 300, and yeah, it's not comparable. This is a much nicer plane, and also hand flying it's much more. I mean, I've never hand flown a small business jet, but for example, the transition from rolling on the ground and the flying, so the takeoff and landing phases are much more realistic in this plane than in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Simply, that transition phase in Microsoft Flight Simulator is somewhat not well simulated. In any kind of plane, no matter what plane it is, it doesn't feel okay. If there is a bit of crosswind, everything is all over the place. And not because I cannot land in crosswind, I can land in crosswind. but something there is not properly simulated yet. So it's like that, So flying in the X-Plane is better, but if you want to take screenshots, that's nice with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's a bit of a pity that these two things don't coexist in one simulator at this time of life. But of course, we're complaining about things that like 10 years ago, how flight simulators look now and what kind of systems were modeled. I mean, of course, flight simulators here are flight simulators that are available for any gamer, because these are not professional simulators, of course. So Hank is nicely behind us. I think the spacing is going to be alright. There is a bit of weather coming towards Liverpool. I can see it on the satellite picture. It should be fine. So we are the only 3 incoming airplane to Liverpool. The 3 of us who are flying now. So we don't really have to pay attention to other people. And you see that we are at 250 knots indicated speed. We could go a bit faster still, that we are high. And let's do that. So let's speed up to 280, let's say. And then we will slow down by 140, flight level 140. I'm still a bit confused by why the arrival altitudes are not populated and how that's going to be. That happens when you don't fly with this system. Because if I look here, these are correct. You have to be at 4,000 there. I want to be there 4,000, so that's okay. Bit confused by why these are not populated. Maybe you have to be on the arrival for these to populate. I don't know. Really, I'm curious. Now we're going to be at 10,000 by Nanti. I mean, TNT, Nanti. Okay, there is quite a bit of distance between those two. Also, sometimes when you zoom in and out, the map display jumps a bit. But yeah, the custom programming is still quite nice. Okay, but maybe it shouldn't speed up too much. We are soon going to cross through cloud layer, and the temperature is getting higher, so we'll put on anti-ice. And you also would use this wing step thing, I think. I've not fully read the icing manual. So I guess this wing step is like the leading edge of the wing can be like, let's say, expanded and contracted by a system, and that's de-icing the leading edge. And since there is no icing simulation, at least on this plane, it's going to be difficult to see if there is ice or not. Okay, now we are coming really at Nanti, and 10,000 is set there. We're already going to roll down to 4,000. And before that we'll also have to switch to local QNH. Curious what's going to happen there, but should be fine. So we are at 187, and by 140 we need to be at 250. That's going to be fine. But we need also a taxi chart here. So airports, parking stands, and airport info. No, the other chart. This one, the airport. So we'll be landing on runway 09. We'll probably vacate via Foxtrot. And then we can choose to come back to the main apron or the general aviation. But the general aviation apron is very small, so we'll just come back to the main apron and park there somewhere, like off the gates at the stands. I mean, I'm a business jet, I will pay enough to park on the big apron, and not with the tiny training planes. I wish I could go in real life with the training planes, but okay. So we are at good speed. We can put a bit more throttle to not go too much below 250, because we'll still want to make it today into Liverpool and not tomorrow. Tank is also slowly coming behind us. Right, so our speed is good. We are coming in on the approach. 150. Since we're getting closer to clouds, I will already tell the passengers to put their belts on. So they can see belts on. We are getting closer to belts on. We are getting closer to Liverpool. And maybe also fold these trays away. So for landing, everything is nicely put away. And also for landing, let's raise all the shields. Everybody's okay back there? Alright. So we are about to cross 140, flight 140, our speed is checked. We can prepare the frequency and the ILS frequency. Normally it's going to end auto-tune itself when we activate the approach, but we can be proactive and set it. So it's 111. We can do it like this: 11175, 1175, ILQ, ILVR. That's different. Interesting. 1175, 1175. And we'll do the VOR to the other one. So it's a 114.1, 114.1, 0, and that's W Whiskey Alpha Lima, so that's correct. It's weird. I think the ILQ is just the same from the other side, and since we are on the other side, that's what it receives. We can easily check that. Approach to 7 and ILQ indeed. So now we are still sensing the IL signal coming from the other runway. In real life that would be switched off because that's the downwind runway, but that will turn when we are on the other side, so that's going to be fine. So then it's going to display India Lima Victor Romeo, India Lima Victor Romeo, sorry. But here we can already see that we are 30 nautical miles from Whiskey Alpha Lima. Still no ATC, still no ATC, unfortunate. Would have been nicer with ATC. Okay, you're coming at Nanti at flight 100, that's going to be perfect. Speed is good. And I'm curious to see what happens there. We should continue descent to 4,000 feet with probably a different descent rate. And since we are coming here, we'll also put the landing lights on. Crossing flight 100, landing lights are on. Icing is on, anti-icing is on. So -1 degree, so that should be fine. And indeed, now everything has populated. And now VPAT is armed and okay, and now we'll only descend further later. So it's 7 minutes from the next stop of descent. So we'll have to do a bit of level flying. Which I have to be is a bit strange, but okay. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay, so this is where the top of descent is, and then we come back. Okay, that's gonna be fine. We'll do that a bit manually then. because we'll want to go a bit earlier than what it prescribes, because remember we prescribed that we want to be at 4000 at teapot, but we actually want to be 4000 at a bit further out on the radial where we will start our approach. So there we'll have to manually activate the approach. So even though we are in V-path here, we'll probably go back to vertical speed and go down a bit faster. So we'll start our descent like 3 nautical miles before our top of descent. And we'll do the same vertical speed though. And then if we do the same vertical speed, then we'll be on the same path if we keep the speed. And then we'll arrive to the 4000 where we want to arrive at the 4000. I'm not sure this was easy to follow now, but you see we want to be here. Just quickly zoom in once more. At this point, so we'll be coming from this outbound radial. We'll turn after Barros, if you see here too. We're coming out, turn Barros, and then fly inbound on the 297 radial towards Teapot. But when we are coming back inwards here towards Teapot, we'll already here intercept the radial. Actually we'll be already on the radial, so there's going to be no intercept, but at the Delta 29 Bravo Hotel we'll turn right to start flying this DME arc, and we already there want to be 4000 feet when we make that right turn. I will actually already start descending there to 2500 feet. And if we left the V path, do everything as it is now set, then it would only arrive at 4000 feet at Teapot, so we'll be a bit high at this point. That's why I'm going to do this a bit manually in the vertical speed mode, or fly for the change. We'll see. Doesn't really make a difference. The point is that we want to be at 4000 feet when we start this turn, and we want to activate the approach before that happens. Let's have a quick look from outside. Into the sunset. Very nice. Not much to see from the countryside below. Some mountains there in the distance. Our speed is good. I think, I hope. Yeah, our first passenger has already landed. Passenger, so. Seaman has already landed, I think. I'm sorry that I couldn't be on the Popcorn Unicorn channel, but I've been talking all the time, so it would not have been very practical to do so. Alright, let's do an approach. External lights are already set, passengers are advised. The crossfeed is set to off. The altimeters are not yet set because now we are not through, but they are still in standard and cross-checked. And icing conditions, we are probably near icing conditions, so the anti-ice are on. Then if we do a quick checklist also, altimeters are cross-checked and minimums are set at 260. Baro means crossfeed clock is off, external lights are set. Passengers are advised, and the sound and all the lights are set as required. Approach checklist is approach checklist is completed. It's getting late and I'm getting tired. Now let's slow down a bit further because action is going to be happening soon. At 250 knots, by the way, you can already put down the gear, and that creates quite a lot of drag. So now we are at the point that we might want to manually start lower, because I think we are more or less 1 minute from the top of the descent. Indeed 1.5 minutes, so we'll manually start going lower. So we'll do vertical speed and go down at 1200. Let's try to stick to 200 knots, or not much above. And since we are already going down to 4000, the transition altitude, just a quick check if there is really no ATC still. No ATC, okay. What was the transition altitude? Flight level transition. Airports. Uh-oh. Okay. Transition altitude is 5000. Since it's almost standard pressure, then the flight level is probably 60. And then we'll switch to local QNH 1014. So now we are still on the arrival. Now we make a left turn. There's a bit of stuttering. I think it's because we are very close to a lot of clouds. Lights are all on. And after the turn of Barros, we'll activate. After Barros, we'll activate our approach. And it's good that the stop of descent circle stays in front of us. That means that we are doing well by arriving down to 4000 before we need to be. Well, when we need to be, but before we would overshoot when we have to be at 4000. Let's say it like that. Let's also pull back a bit the throttle. At the 180 we can put flaps 1. Can also go a bit slower in the descent because we are flying slower. It will help in shedding some speed. And it is still going to switch the frequency. Sorry, switch the frequencies on the top once, twice, and still says India Lima Quebec instead of what we would like to see, the India Lima Victor Romeo. A bit strange. Might be an issue just in the sim. Okay, we can switch to local QNH. So the barrow goes to PFD, not standard barrow anymore. It goes to 1014. It also goes here 1014. Cross-checked and set. And when we make the turn, we will activate the approach. Again, we are still here, we'll make the turn. 1000 feet from the target altitude, that's good. Speed is slowly coming down, that's also good. We don't want to slow down too fast because then we use up too much fuel. We'll see that in the turn we drop speed a bit faster. Indeed. And now I'm going to activate the approach. Oh no, it's in procedures, sorry, procedures. Activate approach, enter, and now it's activated. Okay. Now if we go to flight plan, then we'll have to go down to 2500. So now we're at 4000. Now we want to keep a bit the speed. You need to give quite a lot of throttle when you level off. You can go flaps 1. Not yet. VPAT is still active, that's good. Then you see this is what will take us down to 2500, so now we can turn down to 2500. 2000, 2500. We're not really coming exactly in on the radial. I should have done it a bit nicer, head flying, but again in real life they would have vectored us, so there is very much more work we are doing here than it would be in real life. Okay, very soon we'll turn and start flying this DME arc. The DME arc is at 7 nautical miles from Whiskey Alpha Lima. This is the distance from Whiskey Alpha Lima, so the turn starts at 8.3. We're at 8.3 indeed, that's where the turn starts. And at the intercept we'll start going down too, I think. Hopefully. That's what I expect to happen. Yes, you see, that's where the top of descent is, 30 seconds. To not speed up too much, I'm going to do flaps 1 already. The magenta VPAT marker is coming down. 2500 is set, that's good. Our speed is good, 160, let's try to keep 16. And when we start going down, then of course I will have to remove a bit of the throttle, otherwise we'll speed up much. Okay, hello, why aren't you not going down? Okay, then something is not properly set here. So the required is 1000. Okay, with that we'll catch up in time. And look at the speed. And we'll start going down at 7.5. So we are still 10 nautical miles from where we intercepted the glide slope. That's okay, we'll have enough time to level off for a bit and then lose some speed. So when we are at 2005, we'll activate approach. Then we'll switch from GPS to the ILS. Let's approach external lines as required. Passenger, the approach check is done before landing. We are not yet at the before landing phase. Okay, we are at 2005. Not go much below 160 yet. Can activate the approach. No, we cannot. Why not? strange. Okay, but now the code is correct. Yeah, because we are not yet at the before the final fix, so we need to first get to the CF09, and then we can activate approach. Don't get too slow before we get there. Because Hank is coming behind us. Okay, runway in sight. Always good. We'll go to flap 2 when we start going down. Normally now we could also do it a bit manually and just switch the CDI to immediately be on the VOR, but I will try to do just arm the approach just when we are beyond this point. When we are between the final fix. Okay. Now if I say approach, no. Okay, now it's switched. Okay, good. So now we are on the localizer, and that's why the glide slope is coming down. We are still 1.5. So when we start going down, then we'll be at 6.5, 7.5 out. Okay, that's good. And we don't have to slow down much yet. Okay, glide slope is captured. Can pull back the throttle, and let's do flaps 2. Can set the go around altitude is 2,500 feet, so that's set. We're 6 miles out, 2,000 feet. Let's put the gears down. And we want to come in, let's say, the reference speed plus 10, so 115 initially. Three greens, so gears are down. There in the background, tank is also coming. Let's tell the passengers once more that we are about to land. And we'll do a before landing checklist. Just landing gears down, flaps are not yet fully set, but we are on the reference speed. Flaps 3. And flaps full. They're 4 miles out. Our speed is good. Okay, flaps are set. Yaw damper will be disengaged when we disengage the autopilot. Speed brakes closed. Go around altitude is set. Ice protection is not required anymore. Windshield heat is okay. Ice protection not required. Okay, before landing check is complete. And then we can go manual from here.
Autopilot.
Autopilot is engaged. Okay, we are trimmed. That's good. Always easier in real life than in the simulator, I have to say. Trimming. We are getting a bit slow. Okay, speed is coming back. Good.
400. Minimums.
Continue.
200. 100.
Idle. Speed brakes. And we can step on the brakes too.
Traffic, traffic.
It was a bit of a floater, so we have to go and exit a bit later. But a good landing. And as long as we are on the runway, we don't touch anything else. Okay, we'll vacate here at Golf. And stop after the bars. Off and then after landing. Strobe lights off. Flaps up. Speed brake closed. Windshield is off. Lap 0 lights required. Transporter is standby. And that's it. Let's do a checklist. There is Hank in the meantime. Laps and speed brake up and close. Auxiliary lights set. Ice protection is required. Cabin pressure is less than 0.2. Difference less than 0.2 after landing checklist complete. And then we can taxi to the stand. Taxi lights on and let's roll. While Hank is coming in, we'll see him if we turn in time. There you go. Okay, Hank has landed. Nice. And indeed, it's a paver scenery for Liverpool. To ask a Siemens question. I have to say there is a tiny bit of stuttering with this scenery. And that must be this scenery because I've also encountered this stuttering a bit also earlier, and so it's not the plane. And where is Hank? Don't go too fast. Ah, there is Hank, also vacating at Golf. Yeah, so the frame rate is very good. I don't know why this very small stuttering is with this scenery. But yeah, nothing can be perfect. But everything worked out quite okay. Would have been nicer if there would have been ATC, of course. I can already, in the meantime, while we roll, we should be rolling a bit faster because this is very slow. We can clean up our flight plan. Can you delete flight plan? Well, I'm not going to do that yet, because if I do that, then our dear passengers will not be able to see anymore that we have landed at Liverpool. Yeah, let's go just one further. I hope Seaman also went there. I guess so. And to the question which yoke I use, I use the T16000, so 16,000 I think, from Taskmaster. It's a joystick, not a joke. It's a very good joystick. It's not too expensive either. I like to fly with a joystick because in real life I also fly with a stick. And it also takes less space on the desk. So I will go right here. And there is Seaman. We can also just go straight here because there is no gates, just stands. Let's see where we can park. There is Hank behind. Oh, we can just go to number 2, that's good. So number 2 is just straight. Sorry Hank that I'm so slow here, but I'm always a bit surprised how much throttle you need to give to this one to move. Also, it's a bit of a pity that there is no marshallers on this airport. For a paver, I would expect marshallers. Oops, that's not very good. Okay, parking brake is set. Taxi lights off. Lights are already off. And let's see what we have to do now. Shutdown. We need 2 minutes before we can shut down, so a timer should be started. Reset start. Parking brake applied, heating panel, everything is off. Ice protection panel, everything is off. And then we have to wait a tiny bit before we can turn off the engine. And there is Hank also. We look left, we can see him, and Siba to the right. Thanks for flying, Siba, and thanks for joining also in the chat. And also for Hank, I'm very happy that you could join us. Very soon we'll shut down everything. And indeed, it's this scenery which takes a bit more frame rate than it should. But of course, we are above 30 still. so nothing too bad. See if you can see outside from the tower. No, the tower's position is also not set properly. I never like that when that happens. Siba already disconnected, so I cannot make a screenshot, unfortunately. I was going to do that, but he was too fast. But otherwise, it's also nice scenery. Only a pity for the stuttering occasionally. But that's not the plane's fault. And also by Hank, thanks for joining. And we are 30 seconds from being able to shut down the plane too. So that's going to happen soon. Where am I? Where am I? The aircraft manuals, normal checklist. Why did I close this? After landing checklist is already completed, so we don't have a checklist anymore that we need here. I'm using the AFM actually of the Phenom on my iPad, so I follow the flows from there and the checklist. One thing I wanted to still check is how was our fuel consumption compared to the forecast. We can also turn off the engines now. And that we do just by going to the stop. One engine and another engine. It's stopped. Now we are on battery power for a while, but we'll very quickly turn off, so that's not gonna be an issue. The pages check, sign outlets off, seatbelt signs are off. And so the fuel prediction was that we should have arrived to Liverpool with 550 kilograms of fuel left. And we are at 568. Okay, it's very good. I'm just going to do a very small modification now in the in brief profile, minus 1% in the fuel consumption, and that should make it perfect. So that's nice. That's good. Now we can delete the flight plan. Then there is no more flight plan here anymore. Then if we look back, then you can probably... yeah, and you can see that we are from Liverpool to Liverpool, which is not true anymore, of course. We can open the doors. So the doors are open. And now we can also turn off the lights, the nav lights, because everything is off. These are off. And then leaving the airplane. When we leave the airplane, the oxygen valve comes out, the emergency light switch goes off, the battery switches go off, and then of course all the screens will go away. Battery switches go off. Gas lock pin we cannot install because it's not modeled. The rudder pedal lock is also not modeled. All the lights are already off. So that's done and dusted. And that's the end of today's flight. We have closed down the plane. If we still want to do something, we can install the shocks and the covers. Of course, now the engine would be a bit too hot to cover them up, but it's the simulator, so there is no issue about that. So welcome to Liverpool. I hope you will enjoy the game tomorrow, and I hope Liverpool will win tomorrow, of course. It was a good flight. I think I'm very positive about the Phenom 300 from Aerobask. It's a really nice plane. It's a pleasure to fly. Landing is nice, takeoff is nice, the systems are nicely done. There are some limitations, of course, of the standard laminar Garmin 1000. For example, you cannot program in holds, so if you want to fly holds, you will have to, well, not manually fly them, but there are procedures to fly a hold without actually being able to put it in the FMC, in the flight plan. But overall, I'm really happy about it. I'm very picky about airplanes, as I already mentioned that. The modeling is nice, frame rates are good. This stuttering you've seen around Liverpool is the fault of the scenery, not the airplane. It's really, really nice. I'm happy to fly this. It's nicer to fly this plane here in X-Plane than flying the CJ4 in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the screenshots of the scenery or the atmosphere are not going to be as nice as in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but if you are about the flying and not about just about the visuals, then I can strongly and wholeheartedly suggest having and buying this plane. Not too expensive, it's worth it. It's better buying good planes than buying scenery, because good planes are, because the default scenery also in X-Plane is quite nice. The only reason I have Liverpool, because I really like Liverpool and I thought I would be flying more to Liverpool, which I don't, so it was a bit of a waste of money. And also it's the performance of the scenery is not stellar, but in general I think that the default scenery or freeware scenery in X-Plane is very good, especially Shalera, and you know why that is. So thanks for flying, and see you next time. Bye bye.